All right, we are almost on Thanksgiving weekend. The holidays are upon us. Black Friday is coming. Shopping is off the charts. I know a lot of people are spending a lot of money, having a good time. It's November 23rd. It's Wednesday. We have a great guest. And before we get rolling, let's have our own John Sibley Butler play some music.
You know we're gonna talk, ought to pack my bags, ought to walk. You know a dollar goes from hand to hand, before I let you go from man to man. I would rather drink muddy waters, but I'll sleep in a hollow log.
Man, I like that. I like that. That's nice.
Like
That's
that?
nice.
I can do a lot of blues. How you doing today?
Johnny, how are you? Tell us what's going on.
I'm doing fine. We had just a little thank you during the Kennedy assassination. I was at my brother was at Indiana University, and I was going to the IU Michigan football game when Kennedy got shot. That was a long time ago. I was, I think, 8th grade or something. And then you look at what's going on in Austin, you look at the economy, and you look at how people are approaching Thanksgiving. And of course, the other thing is that we've got the comeback of the flu and the virus, which I find very, very interesting. And then, of course, when you look at the everyday people, you know, we've talked about the real economy of goods and service and the financial economy of the stock market. It seems like everything is going well in everybody's life, and there's always been problems. And then you look at the news, and there's a lot of turbulence in terms of how these things are approaching. But the big thing is TCU is undefeated and ranked number 4 in the country. And that's a great thing for the state of Texas. And I'm liking it. But my alma mater, LSU, snuck up to number 5. So it's going to be interesting.
All right. Well, that's all in good. Remember that what needs to happen here for the Longhorns to get a shot at having a great season is that Kansas needs to beat Kansas State. And then you all need to beat TCU.
Baylor.
I'm sorry, Baylor.
Longhorns.
So that you can play TCU for the Big 12 championship.
That's right.
And then claim revenge and take him out, right?
That's right. Claim revenge.
There you go. So we have a great guest. Tom, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you guys.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure. Before we get rolling, I want to make sure that the audience knows a little bit more about you. So Tom is the enterprise sales executive at BlocApps, and he leads there all those efforts. He's going to be with us for about an hour, and we'll learn more about BlocApps in a moment. But prior to BlocApps, Don was a head of sales at Data Gumbo, and he was a sales executive at Graham Media Group and a senior executive at Sinclair Media Group and similar role at Cox Media. And he started his career, I believe, and working for Sony Pictures Entertainment, perhaps a couple other things. He has degrees in bachelor and MBA from the University of West Florida, and he holds certificates on interesting things like AWS fundamentals, blockchain 360, and foundations and application of financial technology from Amazon, EIT Digital, and the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, respectively. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you.
So, Tom, I think that, usually our audience wants to know real quickly, what does your company do? What are you all about? So tell us real quick, BlocApps, what do you guys do? What market segments you focus on? What is your solution around digitalization?
Okay, BlocApps is a Brooklyn-based software firm that uses Ethereum-based protocols to direct a blockchain. And we focus on a number of areas, but the sort of a general idea of the company is that We capture data, add value, and drive transactions on a underlying enterprise blockchain. We are not involved in cryptocurrency or speculation in that matter. We are typically just coding business relationships, capturing data, writing it into a distributed ledger, which provides additional benefit. But that's we can do a lot of things with this technology, but that's the basic idea.
Well, you know, it's very, very interesting as we move forward on blockchain, since it's been there. As you said, I like to say it's like playing poker, and everybody knows what cards that you hold. That's the good side of it. And as we've discussed sometimes on the program, I think that the other thing is that if you look at what everybody knows, will any companies back up and say, wait a minute, we know that everything is on the ledger now. Everybody can see what everybody else is doing. There are no more secrets, quote unquote. And the visibility is there. Have you run into the problem at all of people saying, well, I'm not sure if I want to do the blockchain because of the ledger and the fact that everybody has got the cards wide open, so to speak?
No, that's not really the way they express their misgivings. Because remember, you can keep things private on the blockchain. You can have parties, you know, they only the relevant parties see it. If they don't have the private keys, they ain't going to see it, period.
Yeah, I mean, the people you're dealing with, the relevant parties, yeah.
The relevant parties, they don't, you know, they don't even that. They're typically, their misgiving does not have to do, at least what they tell me. All right. They may have other issues they're not telling me, but what they will typically say is, yeah, I don't, you know, I'll say, we're going to take your data, we're going to code your business relationship, and we're going to write the outcome. And it's just like in the old days when I would talk to people about their media and their websites. As soon as you start talking to them about really putting traffic on that website, you'd find out what they think about their own website. If they really thought it was just a piece of crap, they were just checking a box. They didn't really want traffic on it. This is the same way. If you talk about driving their business with data, you'll find out what they think about their own data or their competitors' data or their customer, their vendor. And they massage the business outcome inside their office, typically, you know, with their Excel spreadsheets. And they may not want the level of transparency that we're offering to them.
Right.
They want it in theory. In practice, not so much so. And I've sold a lot of use cases and pilots associated with this. And I've seen these projects fall apart, not because our technology didn't work, but because it worked. And it showed things that they did not want to see. So it exposes weakness within people's digital realm. Their data is not what they think it is. They're not really using that data, or the slowness with the way the business process works. That's their safety. They figure, oh, if I take 60 days to complete a cycle, there's no way that I got it wrong. They didn't know any more on the 10th day than they did on the first day. But we're asking them to take the data, make it immutable, put it in a ledger, and speed this thing up. And that creates a, anxiety in them. They're just, this is not the normal way business is done. And that's their problem. So they never say, oh, I don't want my data expressed publicly, because they put out public statements all the time. There's certain things they want known, and they like the idea of things being more efficient and faster. This is a big step forward. You're just prying that Excel spreadsheet out of their hand and putting things on a better ledger. And that's a tough sell. That's just a lot of hurdles to get over to that.
So Tom, walk us through a couple of accounts, if you can share names or not, or just the industry, but who's using it? What are they using it for? Just walk us through that.
Okay, we have a lot of them. I'll go over the ones that I'm involved in. One of them is a company called Prairie Dog Ventures, and they work in the construction space. And what they're trying to, so construction has very significant business process problems. There's just a lot of inefficiency. There's a lot of what they refer to as contract leakage, and it all has to do with the manual nature in which the construction process is documented and executed.
Mhm.
So what Prairie Dog is doing is developing a smart contract around concrete installation. Everything from you ordered the concrete, you took possession of the rebar, it went in, the inspectors came out, pretty much from the, there's a dirt lot to there's a foundation, and now you can start putting a building on top of it.
Mhm.
Every step in that chain typically involves a lot of accumulation of paper, emailing, or in the worst case scenario is actually mailing documents. And then when the inspections are signed off on, that has to proliferate out. And what they're seeking to do is put enough of automation in that and then write it into the ledger so that once it's done, it's done. You do not have to keep going over this, recycling over this process in order to say this part of the foundation of this building is done. And now, customer, you may pay me, because that's typically how it's done. You get paid in these tranches. For the general contractor to prove that they've done their job in order to get their payments takes months
Mhm.
because of the manual nature of the way they do it. So they're trying to speed that process up. And when they do, this means that the general contractor and then all the subcontractors that are downstream from them are not forced to be involuntary finance entities because they have to wait. They're floating you 60 days worth of credit because that's how they did the job and that's how long they had to wait to pay. So that is one instance in which you're trying to speed up an industry. And
Mhm.
if it speeds up, that's just a manifest good. And if it brings greater accuracy, that's good. And if you make sure everybody has access to the same data at the same time in one immutable place, like they don't have multiple versions
Mhm.
of the specs, that's all good. So that's
Are they real quick before you switch to the next example?
Mhm.
Are they thinking about exposing or sharing that information with, say, their lenders or the insurance company or any people like that?
They absolutely could. And the government regulators. If there's any sort of emissions or just, safety protocols, anything that needs to be shared, they can make them a participant on the chain.
Mhm.
I mean, that is a button click away. So to
Right.
speak. Like as
Okay.
long as they're a participant on the ledger and they have the private key and can see it, then they can see it, and the outputs can be formatted for whoever needs to see it. So you get one automated sort of output that goes into the ERP system on this side, so payments can be made. One over here goes to the regulator. I mean, how this is done now. And this is with it's not like they're dealing with, rudimentary technology. They have very good technology to be able to do what they're doing, but they
Yeah.
can't execute their business process with it. But typically because there's no, imagine these, big company over here, Bechtel over here and Exxon over here, and Bechtel's building a refinery for them. The way they manage that middle ground is typically where the manual processes work.
Mhm.
They always said, you show me where the people in the Excel spreadsheet is, and I'll show you where we're going to improve that process.
Well, let me ask you that. There's a lot of transparency there, and there's a lot of preparation there. And let's just talk about, whether it's a cloud and whether it's an app that's on the cloud of the blockchain.
Mhm.
And let's talk about the whole idea. Is it really worth for my enterprise in the future as the numbers go up for your service? Can you see a day where that process is done within their own company rather than going to the cloud? And such that
No,
you can't see going backwards that way.
no. It's part of why
Yeah.
that, I've had to pitch to every department and many big companies, mostly in oil and gas. And very often I'm it's a technology project. I'll get routed into their IT staff. And that's always the first thing they're like, man, I don't want to hire, can I build it? Can we just make it on our own? Your blockchain is marginally better than your database. And the problem with it is it's yours. And I'm not going to put my fate, I'm not hanging my fate on a technology that you control. So there must be, it's the decentralized, automated, control component of the blockchain that makes it appealing.
And you got to deal the cards, in other words. You deal the cards. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So we should really be any adjudicating technology should just be calling balls and strikes. We took the data and we read all the meters and we applied the price to it, and then bam, we wrote down this one thing. A good way to think of it is the the way one of our founders describes it is, you know, sort of the first iterations of the internet created abundance. So I got this one, you know, news article I wrote and I put it out on the web, and that's millions. Anybody can see it anywhere in the world. Or I got this one song file or this one movie or this one thing, and I'm going to create 1 billion copies because it's available everywhere. The blockchain does the opposite. It creates scarcity. There is one. If I have this thing and I give it to you, it's very important that I not have it. There was one. It's not a copy. You have it now. So if you apply that into an enterprise blockchain, it's that there is one record. If it's an insurance contract, that's the thing. Until there's an accident, all there is a concept. There is one. If it's a truckload that's picking up something, there is one number that represents that load. And it's right here. This is what you owe. This is what we did. Here's our permit. Here's the licenses for our drivers. There's one place that it lives. So that scarcity is what is adding, it's what's driving the value down the chain in the internet.
So it's very important for me that when I put it on blockchain, it is absolutely stud correct. There, I mean, it's because that's the reputation of my company. So therefore, the reputation of my company therefore moves on a cloud into a blockchain. So the people that I have preparing my data, they have to be almost absolutely correct, because you don't want to look at the chain on one thing and then do the telephone call and it's a difference. So what you're saying is not only is it more efficiency there, but like in any card game, it's a situation where
you can't take it back.
Can't take it back.
Right. That's what I was saying. One of their hesitations. I'll find out how they feel about their data when I tell them I'm going to make it immutable.
Right.
Then you start finding, okay. I better think about that a little bit.
I guess.
Yeah.
There are different levels of blockchain, and smart contracts seem to be one of the best ways of deploying the technology. Can you share other things that are being done? I mean, people talk about crypto and you say you guys don't do that. People talk about NFTs, and you could actually use blockchain as a platform to record anything, right? You can take your birth certificate, you can put your private documents in them, you can do all kinds of things. What are people doing beyond process automation, leveraging the blockchain in the enterprise?
Well, one of the things that's kind of new, it's not what I did with my previous employer, that's kind of unique to BlocApps, is the idea of tokenization. Now, this is an interesting area to me because the language to discuss all of this this is so new that the language is not super precise, right? So when I say tokenization, I mean creating a digital object that represents something, and it could be anything. It could be a building or a truck or a person with an ID or something like that. I'm creating it as opposed to, it's not a token like a cryptocurrency, right? That's different. So I'm talking about tokenizing an asset. So the world is full of stuff that humans made and that nature made. So there's a forest of trees and an office building. And if I can get that digitally represented accurately in a place, then if I want to do something with that, like sell it, all I do is move it over here. And there are tokens now. Everything on the planet Earth has a token, has a representation, except it might be a stack of paper, some of which is in the county record, some of which is with the driver's license bureau. A little piece of it I got in my pocket, unless I need to whip it out. There is records of things in filing cabinets. So what we're trying to do is make those records digitized and immutable, so that when I transfer it, I'm going to short circuit all of this ruminating over this paper. Is this really what it is? It says it is, but that's what that guy says. I got to get my lawyer. I got to pay him $1,500. He's going to go over the same documents. Why? So that I feel good, right? So that I did my due diligence.
Yeah.
It really was a token of every physical object that was accurate and immutable. Then moving them around would be as fast as reading a newspaper article, right? That would be, I would just click a button and it would be there. And that record is the thing. I
Yeah,
don't need to keep going over this. I don't need to do due diligence every single time. This is what one of the cases we're working on. There are wells out there producing oil and they change hands all the time. The oil and gas is a very dynamic industry and it's forming and reforming, depending upon the price of oil and a whole bunch of other things. Every time they sell those assets, right now, they have to go back over all the documentation that shows the seismic data, what's there. Well, who owns those mineral rights on the top of the ground? Oh, here, I got a document for that. How much oil is coming out of the ground every day? What's its production? Oh, I got that. Do they have any rights to drill in the future? What state is it in? Where are the pipelines? All that stuff is part of what establishes the value of that object. And it's manually done to say, here's my thing, this is what it's for sale. And then it changes hands. And then 18 months later, it's going to change hands again. They go right back over the same documents manually yet again. That is a drag. That is a horrible drag. I cannot think of many things you could do economically around the world that would add more value. This is not a marginal improvement to tokenize these assets to where they can be transferred. And that's what we're doing.
It sounds like I'm going to my doctor's office here when I have to do it all over again every time. But let me ask you this.
They screw it up. Your doctor, look, medical mistakes kill people.
Right.
Because they're doing the same thing. Well, this doctor, he didn't send the whole file and I didn't have time to read it.
Right.
There's a technology solution to this.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. I want you to divide the market into maybe mid caps and regular big corporations. What percentage for your market has done the blockchain and the speed up and the technology and the transparency? If I were to ask you, okay, what percentage of the market that you work with? So you can divide it into the big dogs like Exxon and et cetera, mid-cap companies and smaller companies. It looks to me you would have a whole lot of market going forward. But in your mind, what percentage have not come to the table to do the blockchain?
100% of them have not come to the table.
That's what I.
well, so it's just starting.
This is very early days, and I thought, God knows, I understood it. I've talked to our developers. I know this is real. I've been involved in using it. I know this is a real technology coming, just like the original iteration of the internet's coming. But the adaptation is very, very slow. It is just because we're you talk, it's very interesting. I've been on at least 100 meetings as long as I've been doing this, and I run it. It's just, I've done it enough that now I can sort of see the patterns. And you see, all right, I get this solution. And at first it's like, nope, it's not broken. And you have a solution looking for a problem. And then I'll say, all right, fine. How long does it take you to do this? And how long, does it take you? How do you make your decisions? And eventually you start you peel the onion back and you'll find out where their difficulties are. And when I say stuff is, you can sell a house, houses sell every day, but 30 days to close and all those documents you got to go to. Yeah, you can get it done. It's just wildly inefficient. Now, I don't know for sure, but I mean, when I first got out of college, the first job I had was actually with Kodak in the special effects division. And we were doing miraculous things that replaced the old mechanical nature of effects. And there was resistance to it, and it was very expensive. And now it's common. All those practices are gone. And then in home video, it's all streaming now. The movie theaters are struggling because it's just on demand. The record store is gone. I could just go right down the list of everything. Soon, the giant filing cabinets, the 45-day due diligence period, all of those normal business practices must give way to superior technology. And they are going down fighting like every other industry that is under siege. I was in television for years, and we took as much money out of the newspaper as we could. I would go on those meetings. I would say, nobody's reading that anymore. Do your kids read that newspaper? No, there's nothing but old and poor people in that newspaper. Come to me. I've got digital magic. That'll be what happens to the, to the manual business processes in due time.
Well,
So walk us through a bit of the journey. Give us a sense of timelines. So I ask you guys to show up. I'm a reasonable company. Let's say I have, 200, 300 processes. I have a couple of hundred people doing all kinds of crazy things. And, we make some products, we import things, we have a supply chain, we got components. Say I want to do a process automation, whatever it is, supply chain, anything. What are we talking about from the moment you walk in and you start assessing your software development team, your business analyst, mapping the process, or maybe I have it all mapped out already and I give it to you. What does that take from there to having an application that I can test to then agree to replacing the manual process with your solution? What does that journey look like?
Yeah, it's not that complicated. Usually I'm looking for something that if we applied the technology would produce a real, step up for the company. And so I might say, well, who's your biggest customer or who's your biggest vendor? And let's talk about that business relationship. What drives it? How long does it take to manage? Is it an adversarial, terrible relationship? Or is it what kind of data and who has the data? Is that your data or does your vendor or your customer have that data? And let's talk about automating it and then creating a better relationship. Like a performance bonus or something like that. If you can make this better, would you get a better rate? Would you get more certainty? Do you think you're really getting what you pay for? Or does that documentation come over and you're like, I don't have any way to tell. I just have to pay it because I don't know. So there would be one way to approach it. The other thing is I've gone into companies where they'll say they have thousands of invoices in little bitty, $10,900 invoices. And that's 300 a day. How many people are they supposed to hire for this? Great. So then we'll say, okay, well, what if we could, you only have 8 vendors and these invoices are a little bit, and there is data associated with these, whatever it is, deliveries is sand delivery is the one I was working on. What if we could just make that to where the only ones your staff had to see was if there was an exception. We didn't have data, or that truck is not even an approved vendor. How did that get in our system? So we could approach it there. But you really have to look in and see where is their time and staffs of people and lots of paper. And then you got to ask, is there a data point that is not created by a human that we could use to adjudicate this? And what is the pricing mechanism? Like where does the price come from? Does it come off a chart? Something that we can just hard code in? Does it come off a feed? Like we did a use case regarding fuel delivery, and it came off a feed that just depended on what day the truck picked it up. That's how much they paid. It was whatever the daily rate was. Well, that was awesome because they screwed it up all the time, but it was publicly, it was a digital stream that we could capture and apply. So it's usually not that difficult, but it could be any number of things. You could have two parties, very complex relationship, and you need to improve it. Or just shards of glass that they are out there picking up with tweezers, and we're going to make that work better just by introducing some certainty and some automation. Or it could be tokenizing an asset so that it can be disclosed in a sale or made available for reporting. It's public companies, they have to do a quarterly reports. And that's usually a very manual process. If we can shave 500 hours off of that every quarter, that's big money.
Well, let me ask you this. This is what's fascinating to me. So when I do a company and I fill out all of the paperwork, and I always have a lawyer with me, the legal side is very, very important to me. And maybe if I have to sign something, I have to go and do the old way, not like a do way, and they have to watch the what's the person who stamps it after you sign it, and you
what's notary.
A notary, right? So my question is, where does the legal fit in? Where does the notary fit in? Now, Duo is struggling with this, and I think they're going to put a video so when you sign it in Duo. But my question is, what does legal in this fast-moving digital world, are the lawyers, where do they fit in? Or do they fit in at all? Or do, I mean, there would be, I'm sure there would be lawsuits around
Yeah.
things they said they put in and didn't mean what they say, interpretation. Can you talk to us about the where the legal profession fits in, and a notary fits in all of this?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, you get on a high level, some of that I just don't know, but I can tell you what my experience has been. I know that it has been adjudicated out in most jurisdictions of the world that a coded version of a contract can consider to be legally binding as long as there's a natural language version of it as well. So if there's a natural language version that, say, a judge can read, you can drive your business legally, in a binding manner off of a smart contract. And that there are digital signatures that occur now. I mean, the process, a lawyer is there to design relationships and stand by you when it all goes wrong, right? So there's no difference in the way our version, a smart contract in the blockchain, is being rolled out than there is using DocuSign, for that matter. As long as the contract, the coded version of the contract, truly does represent something that you can capture in natural language, because then you can default back to the normal legal authorities, should there be a dispute. That part's really not that different. Again, one of the things that, slows down the development of blockchain, again, gets back to the data. And in that case, you have a new problem of corrupting of the data. So what if there's a data breach, cyber security type breach, that you have to capture into a contract in kind of a new way? So there's new legal ground that's being cut with this. And I've thought for a long time that the consulting companies and the lawyers are missing a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. Every time they write a recommendation or a contract or something like that, they should have a coded version that goes with it. The law will eventually do this. Legislatures will pass laws and hand out the coded version the approved coded version that goes with it. And we're at some level, we're there, because I can calculate my taxes. There's somebody's got the IRS has a relationship with Quicken, which is where I do my taxes. So they're already creating a legally binding digital precedent. It just hasn't proliferated out into the enterprise quite that yet. There's somewhere, every company is a little bit different in terms of where they are.
So this will be in the future a disruption of the natural legal process that we've gone through for years, just like it's with the tax laws, as you say, with the homegrown or with the home kind of tax programs that we have. Very, very interesting. Yeah. And I said interesting because we feel good when your lawyer is there. We will, I say I don't do anything without my lawyer. You just feel good. Maybe it's a false sense of security, but
look, man, I've been saying I've dealt with a lot of consulting companies too, and I'm like a little bit like having a therapist. You say, I'm thinking about doing this thing, and they say, I think you're right. If you feel good about that, the lawyers are kind of the same way. There is a sort of a security related to having an expert of that kind. But code, I mean, you want to go down a rabbit hole. I'm sure you guys have done it. Just Google code as law, and you're either going to become a believer or a conspiracy theorist, depending on what comes up. But there should be coded relationships, because lawyers and accountants are human beings, and they don't always provide that level of certainty. And I know this because where I've worked, we have tried to code relationships from the original contract, signed off, negotiated by lawyers, and we have found discrepancies in the language that are uncodable because they don't match. So then we got to go back and say, okay, what do you mean? Does the day start at midnight or does it start at 6 a.m.? Which is it? Because it says both somewhere in this contract. So you should be able to have a lawyer. Think about it this way. You should be able to have human beings doing the creative work and the machines doing the rote work. Whether you're talking about symphonies or legal contracts or oil drilling. And so lawyers should be there to pioneer new business models, to do all kinds of things. But just your sort of bog standard boilerplate relationships, that should get coded and then just be a repeat, a smart contract that you can license out.
How much, Tom, how much of I mean, again, just for the sake of the program and folks. So, we track digital transformations. That's what Digital Roundtable is all about. And we focus on obviously telecommunications and infrastructure, buildings, homes, smart housing, things like that. We focus on energy, smart grid. We focus on water, wastewater, and all that automation that goes there. We focus on transportation. We focus on smart cities. And, all these things are driven by all kinds of trends, Internet of Things, cloud computing, business analytics, AI, blockchain, new database technology, microprocessor technology. When you think about it, what is the one thing that is making your life easier when a company decides to do something? What is the one thing that they're doing that drives them to do more work with you? Is it IoT? Is it sensors? What is it that they do? They say, oh, we got to find somebody. We got to call BlocApps. What is it?
It's IoT.
Mhm.
When I first started doing this in 2019, there were a lot of IoT companies that were new, or they were hardware makers that were trying to make their device into an IoT.
Mhm.
And they were struggling or trying to make that transition. And in 2022, when I meet with them, they're doing it.
Mhm.
Their data is good. And there is a sensor revolution just going on. And I run into these companies all the time. People that used to make sensors, it was a thing and had a little needle on it that's for
Mhm.
humans to read. And now it has an antenna on it. That's it, because it's not meant for human beings to read. That what you're buying from that sensor maker is access to the cloud. And so now the data is getting better and better, and the data is getting cheaper and cheaper because you can rent these things. So the IoT is that promise, which was made, at least a decade ago, is finally coming true, because they're solving those problems and they're making their devices smaller and more accurate. And that's just really great. So now when I go to a company, I can say, do you have this data? And the chances of the answer being yes are better. And I'll say, oh, who's your metering company? And it's somebody I've heard of. And I go, okay, well, I know they're in the cloud. All they got to do is point it at us, and then we can capture it and make that data even more valuable. You were using it to track, volumes. Now we're going to connect it to your pay. We're going to connect it to your, we're going to link your customers and your vendors. So IoT has done great things for us and will continue to. I've seen some companies that were brand new starting to thrive. 10,000 units deployed out there. Can't get them fast enough, that kind of thing.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm listening to this, and then I'm thinking about international trade. I was a professor in Japan for 14 summers for China, professor in China, working with business enterprises. What do you think the impact of trust? So let's just take a case, and we know that enterprise start with science and technology, and then we commercialize that science and technology. And we know that we've had some issues with China in terms of intellectual property and those kinds of things. Do you think that your business, which really looks at things in a modern digital way, can solve some of those problems? Do you think that it'll be better for me if I have a company in America to do business with a company in Japan or China or Nigeria or somewhere else? Or do you think, let's put it another way, I know it's a slow process now, but in the future, when we have a situation where we can deal with companies just like everybody is on the same planet under the same kind of rules, as close as we could get.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to change fundamental human nature with any technology. And everything that I do is in enterprise blockchain and outside the realm of cryptocurrency. So I think a lot of what you're talking, I mean, look, in spite of FTX and the crypto winter, I think that cryptocurrency solves a enormous, pervasive human problem of governments debasing the wealth of their citizens, which is what happens in Nigeria. It happened in Venezuela, and it can happen to us under the right circumstances, right? So those sort of government to government relationships are in many ways related to cryptocurrency. But in the case of, like, I've talked to people with Argentina has a huge, oil and gas sector. They've got a shale formation down there that's proven reserve, that's one of the largest in the world. And so delay of payment means a lot more to them, because if they're owed, $1 million today and it takes 60 days to pay it because of the delay, they're going to get it. And there's, inflation over those 60 days, they're going to get paid a lot less. So in that case, or it would be the same thing with intertrade. Or if you were, let's say you were, I heard a lot about this a couple of years ago, because Exxon was drilling off the South American coast of Guyana. And they were expecting that this wealth was going to have a corrupting effect upon the society of Guyana. There's not that many people that live there, and this crush of wealth is about to come. If you look, and historically, people get killed over that because they didn't have any money. Now they got something to fight over, so they will. So it would be possible in that instance for a big company to say, all things will go through this system and only happen. We don't care who your brother is or your cousin or whatever. We're going to do things through this reinforcing data-driven technology. So you might solve some problems in that sense. Like, I've heard this said in drilling sites, why do people do business with trusted vendors? Or you have the way it was expressed to me is you have a pad site and 4 guys out there all have the same last name because they're all cousins. That's a trust. That's how they built trust. In a trustless environment, because it's all being, written to a ledger that's calls the balls and strikes. You don't need that. You don't need that level of trust. You should be able to just say, look, we're engaged in a business and we take the best bid and we have a way that we confirm it, and we'll find some other way to be friends.
Right.
Go drinking together. But we don't have to use those social forms of trust building because we have a trust building technology that adjudicates these relationships for us.
Very interesting. Everything from very interesting, from networks to lobbyists. Would be less efficient as we just work with the data, and this is what we have.
Yeah, and we don't need to know. Like, we just don't need to know. That's what I've been saying to you tell your customer or tell your vendor, stop calling us, stop emailing us. We don't need to do this. Just point the data right there and just chill. Just get your trucks out there to do their job. We'll, everything else is going to be handled by automation that's secure. That's a huge benefit. That's why they ruminate over the paperwork as much as they do. They don't really.
That's what we do with the airlines now. I mean, flight is we try to take as much of the human element out of flight, although you never do it. But certainly, flight is much more safe now with the automatic.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be the same way with cars. Once you corral the human into the things humans are good at, which is creativity and not rote work, which they only do because they have to, then things will be better. Sorry, I'm using that screen as light. It'll be much better. That's what I mean by there's not that many technologies that I can think of that really have the ability to truly create additional value by confirming transactions and getting rid of all that waste. Time is money, and everything takes too long.
So Tom, when you look at the sectors that you guys call on, or people that are calling you, can you give us a sense for, where is the hottest thing going? Is it oil and gas? Is it construction? Is it banking? Is it retail? Is it where is it?
Remember, I'm in Texas, and a lot of the companies, we have our Texas office, and then we have the Brooklyn office that does all kinds of other things that are involved in. They're looking at, ID verification, or, did you really graduate from that college? Taking DNA data in order to, somebody can monetize their 23andMe, that's a lot of what they're doing. What I'm doing down here is mostly in industrial applications, which is oil and gas, construction, and a lot of transportation, because oil and gas and construction is just stuff moving around. So that's the things that I'm the most deeply involved with, which I know about. And that is, obviously hundreds of companies and billions of dollars of trade every day. And I got my hands full
Mhm.
managing, trying to get implementation within those relationships. They use a
Right.
lot of chemicals, chemical delivery, fuel delivery, joint interest billing within fuel delivery. It's everywhere I go. There's things to be improved.
Mhm. Tell me again, I don't think we really got to the bottom of it. Typical project, soup to nuts, A through Z, creation to delivery. Are we talking weeks? Are we talking months? Are we talking years?
If it is a transactional business, like, truck transport, commodity transport, and they've got the data, that's That's weeks
Mhm.
away from being able to go live. You have to have a testing period to, make sure you're getting the right number.
Mhm.
In that case, that's a very quick turnaround. If you're trying to do something like tokenize an asset, that's a little bit different, because you have to make sure that, again, it comes down to the data. You have to make sure that everything that you put in as an input is truly representative of the asset that you're tokenizing. So that might be a little bit longer. That could be months. And then you got to also consider how many people have to accept this. If you have two parties, I hired you and this is how you're going to get paid. Bam, you're done. But if you have governmental authorities, it involves titling or inspections or anything like that, it tends to slow it down, just because you've got to increment your way through. You can still do it. You might say, look, you're our customer and there are no others. And our job is to improve all of your internal processes, so that when you get some of it, you have to do the old fashioned way, because the people on the other side of it will not accept additional innovation.
Right.
And that's not a very satisfying answer. I wish I could give you a better timeline.
No,
But
no, that's
really does
great. That's
depend on
great. That's
the use
great.
case and the data and the parties and how fast they're willing to move.
Well, let me ask a related question. In the marketing of your firm, is it because you had an early win and people like it? It's mouth to mouth. Is it because of you go to industry and present it at their industry meetings? Is it because you're advertising? So when you say that it is moving slowly, and when a new technology is introduced in business practices. So my question is, how are you letting people know what you know? Are you advertising in industry newspapers? Are you going and calling all of the industries themselves? Is it a mouth to mouth? Is it just catching on? If you had in your marketing department, what would you tell your marketing person to do?
Yeah, believe me, I've had many. I was on a call this morning, in fact, with marketing people. So the way that this has been done for as long as I've been doing it was really built on conferences and face-to-face and getting to know people. So I've walked the floor of many a conference and talked to many, many people that way. And we have also done direct outreach, like just emails and phone calls, just straight up sales.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're getting now, which is the really good news, and it's too bad it's took as long as it did to get here, is that a person can go and sign themselves up and start fooling around with it before they even talk to anybody. And they can do it right now. Anybody that goes to blockapps.net, right there on the front page, a big blue button, click here and register for free. And they can register and they will take to a page that's got chains that people have created, and they can see sample smart contracts on there. So they were just now getting to that. It's interesting because when I was still in television and advertising sales, you couldn't do anything with Google without interacting with their sales staff. And then eventually they got to where you could sign up and you could, the user interface, you could get a lot done. If you were Procter & Gamble, you had a salesperson assigned to you. But if you were a pet shop down the street, you just kind of did that all on your own. And that's the way it'll eventually go with us. There will be big transactional use cases that have to take a lot of human creativity to make sure you get the right outcome. But if you just want to sign up all your trucking vendors so you can confirm your transactions for, every time they pick up a load, you will be able to eventually do that yourself. There'll be a drop-down menu, who's your sensor provider, what app are you using, and here's the coded relationship. Just click a few buttons. The fact that right now you can go sign yourself up for a test net at blockapps.net, that is a great step forward in terms of our marketing.
Mhm, mhm.
Very,
It
very,
should be that you sign off, accept the terms and conditions, and then you get around to start testing it. You can do
Yeah.
a great deal right now.
so the knowledge of blockchain as a ledger of what you do. I mean, blockchain is known by a lot of people, but the application of blockchain, would you say that it is saturated in terms of knowledge and know-how? And know-how is a brand new technology that people are getting accustomed to. Most people outside of our arenas have not heard of it. Most companies have not heard of it. How would you say that is going? How do you view the landscape out there of this brand new automobile? Have people seen it? Do they know how great it can be?
Oh, the biggest problem we kind of have is that the underlying technology of a blockchain, it's just a ledger. It's just a ledgering system, is that it's associated with cryptocurrencies, and cryptocurrencies have a problem we don't have. They're trying to supplant government, government currencies, and it's an unregulated security. And what happened with FTX is it's horrible. It will go down in history as one of the great black moments in business history, of just a terrible mark upon the
Yeah,
industry. There was
yeah.
fraud, there was theft, there was Ponzi scheme, there was lying. People are going to go to jail. I hope they go for a long time, because that is fraud and deceit in an industry that's trying to create honesty and transparency.
Mhm.
So the fact that blockchain is so associated with currency as opposed to just transactions is a real problem
Yeah,
in the immediate. Now, in the long term, this is good because it's going to boil off all the froth and all of the bad actors, and hopefully what will be left in some capacity. And I think BlocApps is as good as any, like in terms of being organized as a well-run company, is a ledgering system that allows for people to have transactional certainty and real tokenization and transfer of assets using data in a way that is just impossible for now. Because it's not like, oh, if blockchain is replacing anything, it's supplanting databases. The problem with databases is I have mine and you have yours. So this is what I mean. It's just it's an intermediate ledgering system that exists between entities that coordinating. It's like, look, my PC was really valuable when only I could get to it. But man, you put that modem on it and now I can get to other people's PCs. Now my PC's worth a lot more. The internet was built on connectivity. Blockchain is just it's connective tissue between enterprises. It's great. It's just, and in cryptocurrency may work out really well too, but we're not
Right.
quite.
Yeah, yeah. Tom, again, lots going on, and let me give you something, get some sense from you. COVID came and went. There's still elements of it lingering around. Conference calling, international calling, the Hong Kong call, the European call, East Coast versus West Coast. This has been going on forever, but COVID, in many ways, we think, has become a catalyst, an accelerator of digitalization. Will you say the same? Has it impacted positively the speed at which businesses are wanting to transform or not?
I don't know that COVID had anything to do with what we do. COVID affected the oil industry, radically. And because that was primarily, my customers I was trying to sell to was oil and gas. It affected them just, tremendously, and it still is. But they are, in the long term, they're seeking now safer options, because it's always, that industry is always a boom and bust, and now they just went through another boom and they're in the middle of a bust, and so they want technology that will allow them to scale without doing the painful part, which is hiring and firing.
Right.
So they're continuously seeking greater innovation, and right now I'd say, just from the conferences I go to, that those devices, the IoT, they're in the data phase, digitizing and getting digital data streams and getting it up to the cloud phase. And that, by the way, I've talked to people that, you know, been in technology, specifically on oil and gas, and they're like, yeah, they said 10 years ago, they're never going to put their data in the cloud. They're never going to let go of those data centers they have, all their servers in their secret location, because they don't trust it. But they did. They went with the cloud, and they will go with distributed ledgers, because in the end, it is a superior technology to what they're doing. I know that it is. I've heard them say it. So the adaptation of all digital technology is being accelerated by the pandemic. But the one I know most about is oil and gas, and they're just at, you know, pandemic had a tremendous, you know, sort of created a really quick and ugly boom and bust cycle, which was normal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
you know, for an old guy
Right.
like me, we used to call it the mainframe. And when I was in graduate school, I did everything on the mainframe. And I had a dumb computer to do it, and we all shared stuff on the mainframe. Of course, we didn't have apps. We had other kinds of stuff, but you're exactly right. The trust would be there.
Yeah, they'll
So
do it. They weren't going to
Tom-
use the original internet.
Yeah.
Right.
Tom, tell us in closing here, what keeps you up at night? What's in front of you the next few weeks before the year is out?
Well, my prairie dog customer is trying to finish up. They have deadlines, and they need to deliver that concrete smart contract to the customer before the end of the year, which is why I'm going to go up to meet with the developers. They're using an outside development firm, so I got to meet with them pretty soon. And I want that to, you know, to meet its goal. That's a great showcase, because if they can get that thing up and running, and if you buy concrete for any building or refinery or, you know, LNG plant, whatever it is you're doing, and you can manage that concrete relationship better, that's just a huge win for us. So I really want to see that work out. And then, you know, that part that keeps me up at night is just the same thing that it would be at any other time, which is the delay associated with people accepting that they need to get moving forward, that the status quo, it's not good enough. They're going to get left behind if they don't get on board.
Yeah.
And I want this to happen, obviously, you know, within my career lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of keeps me up, that it'll take too much time. Nothing I can do about that, except just do my job and work with my coworkers and try to, you know, plot ahead as a good salesperson and a good employee at my company. And I believe in this company. BlocApps is a good company, and they've got some very good things going. The fact that you can now sign up to that test net and start getting your feet wet, you couldn't do that when I went to work there, and you couldn't do that at my other employer at all. So they're really making progress, and I'm hoping it speeds it up, and then this job will get easier and easier.
Good. Well, we appreciate you being with us. Johnny, you were gonna have a question there.
Yeah, well, I think the digital trust is one of the greatest issues in the digital era. And I think digital trust is at the very, very center of doing business in the future. Whether it's ditto, what, you know, it just is. And we've come a long way in digital trust. And I think that the blockchain will help us to really, really bring that all together from the business side, the great business side of the world, and trust relations. And like you said, the more you can take the human element out and just have the data, then the more you can take corruption out. And I think that that's a good thing.
Yeah, I could not agree more. It's exactly how it'll play out.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, Tom, tell us real quick, what's your favorite trade show?
Well, I went to Fuse that the Digital Wildcatters guys put on, and it was at a brewery. So when you weren't watching speakers, you could just go and have a beer. Just doesn't get any better than that. I'm a guy, I like beer. So that was pretty good. That was my favorite.
Well, thank you for being with us, and we could talk longer, but I don't know if you have any parting thoughts or anything you want to promote, where you're going to be in the next 6 months or anything like that, but we certainly hope that you will come back to Digital 360 Summit.
I'll come back anytime you want me to. And the only thing I'd like to promote is, like I already said it, if you want to sign up and you can start developing on top of BlocApps for free right now. Just go to blockapps.net. You'll see the button, sign up. It's not wham bang with a lot of visuals. It's built for developers, but you can see it and you can see blocks and you can do it, and you really will advance your knowledge. Just go and sign up.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. John, any final thoughts?
I think that's it. It's a great program and great technology and great looking forward to the future.
Well, take us away, Johnny.
Okay, I will. Living on the road, my friend, it's gonna keep you free and clean. And now you wear your skin like iron. Your voices are just kerosene. What your mama's only son, but a favorite one, it seems. She began to cry when you said goodbye. Slipped into your dreams.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
All righty. Y'all be good.
Great
Now.
Thanksgiving.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too, guys.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.